The simulation bay smelled like overheated electronics, and something Amanda couldn't quite identify but suspected was fear. She stood on the observation platform with her evaluation tablet clutched in both hands, watching the holographic display flicker through what could generously be called a docking procedure and more accurately described as a controlled collision. Threxin, the Velkreen pilot trainee, sat in the simulator chair below her with his two large eyes swiveling in opposite directions. His teal-blue rubbery skin had already darkened to a concerning shade of cobalt, and his throat sac was inflating and deflating so rapidly it produced a low, continuous hum that made the metal floor vibrate. His tail, which had a fan-shaped tip that normally hung relaxed, was now wrapped around the chair leg so tightly the metal groaned. The holographic shuttle on the screen drifted toward the docking port at an angle that violated at least 3 laws of physics and possibly 1 treaty. "Threxin," Amanda said, her voice flat, "you're approaching at 42 degrees off axis." "I am correcting." Threxin's voice resonated from his throat sac, though both his arms remained frozen on the control sticks, making no actual corrections whatsoever. "You're now at 48 degrees off axis. This is better, yes?" "No." The simulated shuttle clipped the docking port, spun twice, and careened into a fuel depot. The holographic explosion was quite impressive. Amanda had seen it 11 times before. She made a note on her tablet under a file that was beginning to require its own directory. Threxin's skin turned navy blue, nearly black. His neck frill extended fully, and both eyes swiveled backward to look at Amanda with an expression that might have been apologetic if she'd had any frame of reference for Velkreen emotions beyond absolute terror. "I have destroyed the station again," Threxin said. "Yes. This is not passing?" "No." Threxin's throat sac deflated entirely, making a sound like a balloon losing air. His tail unwound from the chair and drooped to the floor with a wet slap. The holographic display reset itself with a cheerful chime that seemed deeply inappropriate for the circumstances. Amanda descended the platform stairs, her regulation boots clicking against metal. She'd been a flight instructor for the Galactic Transit Authority for 8 years. She'd trained pilots from 43 different species. She'd maintained a 96% pass rate, which was the 3rd highest in the sector. She'd followed every protocol, filed every report, and never once lost her temper. Threxin was going to break that streak in one way or another. "Let's review," Amanda said, stopping beside the simulator chair. "Walk me through your approach sequence." Threxin's eyes swiveled to face forward, then independently tracked to different corners of the room, then somehow ended up looking at each other. "I engaged the forward thrusters." "At what velocity?" "Maximum velocity." "Why maximum?" "To arrive quickly." Threxin's skin flickered between navy and a slightly lighter blue. "This is incorrect?" "The docking port isn't going anywhere, Threxin. It will wait for you. But I must be efficient. The manual says efficiency is important." Amanda pulled up the approach telemetry on her tablet. Threxin had indeed engaged maximum thrust, then apparently panicked and also engaged reverse thrust, resulting in the shuttle spinning like a throwing star while somehow still moving forward. It was almost impressive. "Efficiency means smooth, controlled movements," Amanda said, "not speed." "Ah." Threxin's throat sac inflated slightly. "So I should go backwards slowly?" "No, forward slowly." "But you said reverse." "I said you used reverse thrust. I didn't say you should." Both of Threxin's eyes swiveled to look at her again, blinking out of sync. "Human language is very confusing." Amanda had heard this before. 11 times before, specifically. She'd filed reports after each failure, noting that Threxin struggled with spatial reasoning, panic management, and basic cause and effect. The GTA had sent back approvals for 11 retests. She suspected someone in administration had a quota to meet for interspecies inclusion, and Threxin was somehow helping them meet it. "Let's try again," Amanda said, initiating another simulation. This time, Threxin managed to approach at only 30 degrees off axis before clipping a communications array and spiraling into a passenger liner. His skin went so dark it was almost purple. The 12th attempt involved Threxin somehow engaging the shuttle's emergency escape protocol while still docked, which launched the entire cockpit into space at high velocity. Amanda hadn't even known that was possible in the simulation. By the 13th attempt, Threxin's tail was dragging on the floor, his throat sac barely moving, and his skin had settled into a resigned gray-blue that reminded Amanda of a rain cloud. She was typing up the failure report when the door to the simulation bay opened. Hayes entered carrying his coffee thermos in one hand like he was preparing to throw it. His gray beard was more disheveled than usual, and his expression suggested he'd been dealing with administrative personnel. Amanda recognized that expression. She'd seen it in the mirror. "Amanda," Hayes said, "we need to talk." Amanda saved her report. He failed again. "I know. 13 times now. I can count." Hayes took a long drink from his thermos. "How badly this time?" He launched the cockpit into space while docked. Hayes closed his eyes. "That's not even a standard failure mode." "I'm aware." Threxin, still sitting in the simulator chair, raised one arm tentatively. His skin flickered between gray-blue and teal. "I wish to say I tried very hard." "We know," Hayes said, not unkindly. Then to Amanda, "Can I see you outside?" They stepped into the corridor, which was sterile white and decorated with motivational posters about safety protocols. Through the viewport, a nebula swirled in shades of pink and gold, completely indifferent to their problems. Amanda held her tablet against her chest and waited. Hayes took another drink. "Administration called." "Of course they did. Threxin has to pass today." Amanda blinked. It was the most emotion she'd shown all morning. "That's not how certification works." "There's a loophole." Hayes looked at his thermos like it had personally betrayed him. "Velkreen treaty clause. If a candidate fails simulation 13 times, the 14th evaluation must be conducted in actual flight conditions." "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." "It was negotiated by diplomats, so yes." Hayes gestured vaguely toward the simulation bay. "He gets one real flight. If he completes it without killing anyone, he passes." Amanda pulled up the regulation on her tablet, scrolling through the relevant treaty sections. There it was, buried in subsection 42, paragraph 8. The Velkreen delegation had apparently insisted on it as a cultural concession, something about how their people learned better under genuine pressure. "This is genuine pressure," Amanda said, gesturing to the simulation bay. "He's been terrified for 13 attempts. Simulated terror doesn't count, apparently." Hayes rubbed his beard. "Look, I know this is irregular." "Irregular? He can't dock a shuttle. He destroyed a fuel depot 12 different ways. He launched a cockpit into space while it was still attached to the station." "I know. If I take him up in a real shuttle, we will die." "Probably not." Hayes didn't sound convinced. "You'll be there. You can take over if things go wrong." "Things will go wrong immediately." "Then you take over immediately." Hayes met her eyes. "I can't override a treaty clause, Amanda. And administration made it very clear that if we don't follow protocol, we'll be the ones filing for new employment." Amanda looked back through the viewport. The nebula continued swirling, still magnificently unconcerned. Somewhere out in that beautiful, indifferent void, there were pilots who'd earned their certifications through actual competence. She'd trained hundreds of them. She'd followed every rule, filed every report, maintained her professional standards without compromise. And now she was being asked to take a pilot who'd failed 13 times on a real flight through actual space where actual physics applied and actual consequences existed. "What's the minimum flight path for evaluation?" Amanda asked. Hayes pulled out his own tablet. "Simple route through the Kessor Belt, standard obstacle course. If he can navigate it without hitting anything major, he passes. The Kessor Belt has an asteroid density of 0.4 per cubic kilometer." "I'm aware." "He hit a stationary docking port 13 times." Also aware. Hayes tucked his tablet away. Look, maybe real stakes will focus him. Maybe he'll rise to the occasion. They both looked through the window into the simulation bay. Threxin had somehow gotten his tail tangled in the chair's harness straps and was using both arms to try to free it, managing only to pull the knots tighter. His skin was fluctuating between 3 different shades of blue in a pattern that suggested deep confusion. He's not rising to anything, Amanda said. Then you fly and he watches. We mark it as a supervised qualification. He gets his license with restrictions. Everyone's happy. The treaty clause is satisfied. That's not evaluation, that's fraud. That's creative interpretation of protocol. Hayes drank from his thermos again, longer this time. I've been doing this for 30 years, Amanda. Sometimes the rules don't make sense. Sometimes you just have to survive them. Amanda looked at her tablet, at the failure report still waiting to be filed, at the regulation that was somehow going to force her into a shuttle with the least qualified pilot candidate in GTA history. She'd joined the Transit Authority because she believed in standards, in proper procedure, in the idea that competence mattered more than politics. She was starting to suspect she'd been wrong about that last part. When? Amanda asked. 2 hours. Bay 12. I'll have a shuttle prepped. Hayes turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, you're the best instructor we have. If anyone can keep him alive for one flight, it's you. I don't want to be the best at keeping catastrophically unqualified pilots alive, Hayes. I want to train competent ones. Yeah, well, Hayes raised his thermos in a mock toast. Welcome to the Galactic Transit Authority. He left. Amanda stood in the corridor, watching the nebula and contemplating her life choices. Behind her, through the bay door, she heard a crash and Threxin's throat sac emit a high-pitched hum of distress. The tail situation was apparently getting worse. She pulled up the Kessor Belt route on her tablet. It was technically classified as a beginner course, which someone in route planning clearly thought was hilarious. The asteroids were marked. The path was clear, and any pilot with basic spatial awareness could navigate it easily. Threxin had demonstrated, 13 times over, that he possessed spatial awareness equivalent to a concussed brick. Amanda filed the 13th failure report, noting for the record that she was proceeding with actual flight evaluation under Treaty Protocol subsection 42, paragraph 8, and that she wanted it documented that she had advised against this course of action in the strongest possible professional terms. Then she went back into the simulation bay to untangle Threxin from his own tail. Good news, Amanda said, approaching the chair where Threxin had now somehow gotten both arms stuck in the harness along with his tail. You're going on a real flight. Threxin's skin immediately went black. Both eyes swiveled backward so far they were facing behind him. His throat sac inflated to twice its normal size and produced a sound like a foghorn. That is not good news, Threxin said, his voice vibrating the floor. That is terrifying news. You'll do fine, Amanda lied, beginning to work on the knots. Real flight conditions are very similar to simulation. I have destroyed the simulation 13 times. Yes, but those weren't real. The next destruction will be real? Ideally, there won't be any destruction. Amanda freed one of his arms. We'll be going through the Kessor Belt. Simple asteroid navigation. I'll be right there. To watch me fail in actual space where actual death occurs? To help you succeed. Amanda freed his other arm and started on the tail. Just follow my instructions exactly as I give them. I have been following instructions. No, you've been interpreting instructions creatively and then panicking. Threxin's throat sac deflated slightly. What is difference? Amanda freed his tail with a final tug. That's what we're going to find out. 2 hours later, Amanda stood in docking bay 12, staring at the shuttle that was going to be either her vehicle for a successful qualification or her coffin. It was a standard GTA trainer, which meant it was built to survive student mistakes but not deliberate catastrophe. The question was whether Threxin's particular brand of incompetence qualified as mistakes or catastrophe. The shuttle had 2 seats, a cockpit windscreen that showed the asteroid field in the distance, and approximately 3,000 buttons, switches, and controls that Threxin would have ample opportunity to press incorrectly. Threxin approached from behind, his footsteps dragging and his tail leaving a trail on the deck. His skin was navy blue and his throat sac was humming loud enough that a maintenance worker looked up in alarm. "This is the death vessel," Threxin observed. "It's a training shuttle, in which I will die during training." "Hopefully not." Amanda climbed into the instructor's seat, which had override controls for every system. "Come on, we're on a schedule." Threxin climbed into the pilot's seat with all the enthusiasm of someone ascending a gallows. His tail curled around his own leg, and both eyes swiveled to look at Amanda simultaneously, which she'd learned meant he was paying maximum attention. "I wish to state formally," Threxin said, "that I do not want to die today." "Noted." Amanda began pre-flight checks. "Put your hands on the controls." Threxin placed both hands on the control sticks, and immediately the shuttle lurched forward 3 centimeters before Amanda slapped the safety lock. "Stop touching things until I tell you." "I was preparing to fly." "Prepare without touching." Amanda finished the pre-flight checks, contacted the docking controller, who sounded bored and clearly had no idea what was about to happen, and released the docking clamps. "All right, on my mark, you're going to engage forward thrust at 10%. 10, not 100, not 0, 10. I understand numbers. Evidence suggests otherwise." Amanda released the safety lock. "Mark." Threxin engaged thrust at 60%. The shuttle shot forward, then immediately backward when he overcorrected. Amanda grabbed her override controls and stabilized them before they hit the bay doors. 10%, Amanda said calmly. "The number between 9 and 11. I was nervous." "Be nervous at 10% thrust." They made it out of the bay on the 3rd attempt. The shuttle drifted into space, and through the windscreen, the Kessor Belt waited for them like a firing squad made of rocks. Amanda pulled up the navigation route on the console display. "See those markers?" "Yes." "Fly between them." "This sounds simple." "It should be simple." Amanda watched the first asteroid approach, roughly the size of a transport hauler. "Adjust 3 degrees to port." Threxin adjusted 30 degrees to port. The shuttle spun, and Amanda corrected again. 3 degrees, not 30. "The controls are very sensitive." "The controls are normal. Your hands are very enthusiastic." They approached the asteroid. Threxin's skin darkened with every meter. His throat sac began inflating and deflating rapidly, producing a sound like a broken air compressor. Amanda had her hands hovering over the override controls, ready to take over the moment things went wrong. Things went wrong immediately. Threxin somehow engaged the reverse thrusters, the lateral thrusters, and the emergency brake simultaneously. The shuttle performed a maneuver that Amanda was fairly certain violated at least 2 laws of motion and possibly one of thermodynamics. They spun completely around, nearly clipped the asteroid, and ended up facing backward. Amanda grabbed the controls and corrected their trajectory. Again. Threxin's eyes were swiveling so fast they were blurring. "I cannot do this," Threxin said, his voice vibrating with panic. "I am going to die, and also kill you." "You're not going to—" Amanda started, then stopped, because Threxin's eyes had stopped swiveling. They had fixed forward, locked on the view screen where a piece of debris was tumbling directly toward them, and Amanda saw something shift in his expression. The instructor froze when her eyes stopped tracking the room and locked on him. Not in his usual panic, not in confusion, in focus. Threxin's hands moved on the controls, smoothly, deliberately. The shuttle dipped, rotated, and slid past the debris with centimeters to spare. His skin flickered from navy to teal in an instant. His throat sac went quiet. Then they cleared the debris, and Threxin immediately panicked again, jerked the controls, and sent them spinning toward another asteroid. Amanda grabbed the override and stabilized them, her heart pounding. But she'd seen it. For exactly 3 seconds, Threxin had flown like he knew what he was doing. She looked at the Velkreen pilot. at his rapidly swiveling eyes and inflating throat sac, and had a terrible realization about the treaty clause and why it existed. "Oh no," Amanda said quietly. "What is oh no?" Threxin asked, his skin going black. "I do not like oh no." Amanda looked ahead at the asteroid field, at the route they had to complete, at the pilot who'd just demonstrated that somewhere buried under 13 layers of absolute panic was someone who might actually be able to fly. She was going to have to scare it out of him. "Threxin," Amanda said, "I need you to trust me. I do not trust anyone right now, especially not myself. I'm turning off the instructor override." Both of Threxin's eyes swiveled to stare at her. "That is the worst idea ever spoken in any language. For the next 5 minutes, it's just you flying, no help, no corrections." "We will die." "Probably not." Amanda's finger hovered over the override disable. "But you're going to have to fly us through that asteroid field yourself." "I cannot." "You just did. For 3 seconds. That was accident caused by fear." "Then be afraid for 5 minutes straight." Amanda disabled the override, and every safety system in the cockpit immediately started flashing warnings. "Go." Threxin made a sound like a dying whale. His skin went a color Amanda had never seen before, something between black and translucent. His neck frill extended so far it hit the seat back, and ahead of them, the Kessor Belt's densest section waited, filled with asteroids, debris, and absolutely no room for error. The first asteroid came at them like a judgment. Threxin's throat sac inflated so large it pressed against the control console. His skin cycled through colors that might not have existed on the standard spectrum. Both eyes swiveled in completely different directions, which should have made piloting impossible. The shuttle dipped left, smooth, controlled. They slid past the asteroid with room to spare. Amanda's hands gripped her armrests. The override was disabled. She couldn't help. She could only watch as Threxin's panic somehow translated directly into competent flying. "I am dying," Threxin announced, banking right to avoid a cluster of debris. The movement was perfect. "My heart organs are failing." "You're doing great." "I cannot see. My eyes have abandoned their purpose." He rolled the shuttle inverted, threaded between 2 asteroids, and rolled back upright. Textbook maneuver. "I have forgotten how to breathe." "Keep forgetting." Amanda checked the navigation display. They were actually ahead of schedule. "You're through the first section." Threxin's skin went completely translucent for a moment, showing what might have been internal organs or possibly pure terror given physical form. His tail had wrapped around his seat so tightly the metal was groaning. He somehow flew even better. They approached the belt's densest section, where asteroids clustered like a parking lot designed by chaos. Amanda had seen qualified pilots take 10 minutes to navigate it carefully. Threxin had maybe 3 minutes before they'd drift into the field, with no room for corrections. "I wish to eject from this shuttle," Threxin said, dodging left, then right, then threading through a gap barely wider than their hull. "I wish to eject from my own body." "Almost there." "You are lying to comfort me before death." 2 more minutes." Threxin made a sound like a garbage disposal choking on silverware. His throat sac was vibrating so fast it was humming in harmony with the engine. He flew through the asteroid field like he'd been doing it his entire life, while simultaneously convinced he was experiencing his own death. They cleared a massive asteroid, and Amanda saw open space ahead. The route was almost complete. Against every reasonable expectation, Threxin was going to pass. That's when the proximity alarm screamed. An asteroid uncharted. Naturally, because the universe had a sense of humor, tumbled into their path. It was rotating, shedding debris, and absolutely unavoidable at their current speed. Threxin's eyes both swiveled to look at it. His skin went from translucent to black to a color that might have been described as the void itself. His throat sac inflated so large he could barely reach the controls. "We die now," Threxin stated. "Use the ventral thrusters," Amanda said, her voice somehow calm despite her heart trying to escape her chest. "Flip over it." "I do not know ventral." Bottom thrusters. The blue button. Threxin's right arm shot out and hit the red button instead. The emergency reverse thrusters. The shuttle screamed, shuddered, and stopped so abruptly that Amanda's harness cut into her shoulders. The asteroid tumbled past them, close enough that debris scraped along the hull with sounds like fingernails on metal. They hung in space, completely still, surrounded by asteroids on all sides. Threxin's skin had settled into a shade of blue-gray that suggested his soul had left his body, but his body hadn't noticed yet. His throat sac deflated entirely. Both eyes stared straight ahead, unmoving. "Threxin? I am dead," Threxin whispered. "This is the afterlife. It looks like space. You're not dead. You stopped us. I pressed wrong button." "You pressed the right wrong button." Amanda looked at the navigation display. They were stationary, but they'd technically completed the route. The final marker was behind them. "You made it through the belt. By dying. By flying." Amanda reached over and reactivated the override controls. She'd seen enough. Engaging auto-return to station. The shuttle turned gracefully and began the flight back to the GTA station. Threxin sat motionless, his skin slowly cycling back toward teal, his throat sac barely moving. They docked. Amanda handled that part and sat in the cockpit as the bay repressurized around them. Through the windscreen, Hayes stood on the observation platform, his coffee thermos frozen halfway to his mouth, his expression suggesting he'd witnessed something that violated his understanding of reality. "Did I pass?" Threxin asked quietly. Amanda looked at her evaluation tablet. By every technical measure, he'd completed the route. He'd navigated the asteroid field. He'd avoided obstacles. He'd even performed an emergency stop that, while completely incorrect procedurally, had prevented a collision. She pulled up the evaluation form and checked the boxes. All of them. "You passed." Threxin's skin flickered through 6 colors in rapid succession. "This is impossible." "Yes. I do not understand." "Neither do I." Amanda signed the certification and transmitted it to Hayes. "Apparently you fly better when you're convinced you're dying." "I am always convinced I am dying." "Then you should do great as a pilot." Amanda unstrapped from her seat and opened the cockpit door. "Congratulations, Threxin. You're certified." She stepped out of the shuttle and walked across the bay toward Hayes, who was still frozen in place, his thermos forgotten. "He passed," Amanda said. Hayes blinked. "How?" "I have absolutely no idea." Amanda headed toward the exit. "I'm taking the rest of the day off." "Amanda, I'm taking the rest of the month off?" She left Hayes standing there and walked through the corridors of the GTA station, past the motivational posters about safety, past the viewport showing the nebula that was still magnificently indifferent to everything. Behind her, in the docking bay, Threxin emerged from the shuttle on shaking legs, his tail dragging, his skin the color of confusion. He was a certified pilot now. The galaxy was going to be very interesting.